Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
A very warm welcome to our real life event here at All Hallows. Really lovely to see you this evening. If we've not met before, my name's Johnny, and I'm the rector or vicar here at All Hallows. And we've come together this evening to enjoy this lovely meal and to hear stories from the Mulberry Project about addiction recovery. And we're going to hear a bit also about how faith in Jesus connects with that work. So please feel free to keep eating seconds and things as you're going. And we're going to hear now from Keith, what's your title, Keith? Is it CEO, Director of the Mulberry Project?
That's a bit upmarket for me.
A bit too upmarket. Well, here's Keith and he can introduce himself.
General dog's body and yeah. Right, a little bit about why Mulberry started. Won't keep you long on it, but it does involve a reading. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who have been blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And that was the passage that got me off my backside in a pew and set up Mulberry. God had already provided the gifts I needed for it because he'd been training me for donkey's years, I think. But that was the passage that got me out of my pew and starting up Mulberry. Particularly the one about I was in prison, because addiction is a prison. There's no two ways about it. It is a prison, and it's hard to get out of it. These guys will tell you that, I'm sure. That's why Mulberry started 11 years ago nearly now we've been operating. God's looked after us in all that time. He's sent some good people to work with, and he's sent some flaming awkward ones as well. Okay? But you treat everybody the same, because God loves everybody. He loves me, he loves everybody. Okay? We've got 4 people here tonight who are quite willing to stand up and tell you about themselves. One who is no longer with Mulberry. How long have you been gone, Benny?
6 years and 8 months.
6 years?
Out of there.
That's a long time, 6 years. It shows the process works somehow. I just knack at them mainly. Okay. And when they come in my office, it's like going into the headmaster's office. It's true. I'm not that bad. Honest, I'm not. We have some, well, the other 3 people are in the Mulberry Project at the moment, and the longest one who's been in is Matthew. Matthew's on my left, and I'm going to hand the mic over. He's the guinea pig, bless his cotton socks. Have a mic. Tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Keith. It's all right to sit down there. I think I'm one of the really awkward ones, actually, that Keith was talking about. My name is Matthew. I'm an addict. I'm in recovery, and I've been with the Mulberry Project for about 5 years now. And I'm really nervous. You probably can hear my heartbeat going quite backwards. But anytime Keith asks me to share my experience with Mulberry Project, I'll always say yes, because ultimately, you know, Mulberry's saved my life, and it's given me a life as well. It's given me the opportunity to set the foundations for the rest of my life, really. So my story was, I started getting into sort of drinking and drugging sort of at a very early age, and the last 2 years of my using, I was kind of getting locked up in psychiatric wards, and it was really affecting my mental health, and I had lots of attempts to try and kill myself. I was obsessed with killing myself. And I had sort of a rock bottom in the psychiatric ward, and I had a spiritual experience in there where I'd been sort of crying and screaming for weeks, and they gave me a guitar to play to calm me down. So they knew that I'd sort of played guitar. Ended up smashing this guitar up, and loads of shards of wood everywhere, and I was just about to kill myself with this piece of wood. And something told me, because I'd been in recovery off and on for about 15 years before that, and I could never quite get it. I went to lots and lots of meetings and talked to lots of people in recovery. I just couldn't get it. And just before I was going to do it, something told me to hit my knees. And in recovery circles, it sort of teaches about higher powers and handing the will in your life over, and that was my experience. That something told me to hit my knees, and I reached out to something I didn't really understand, and I got this really calming sense come over me, and I dropped the piece of wood. And I looked over at the door, and normally if you're in a psychiatric ward and there's lots of people lined up outside your door, it's normally not a good sign. You know, they're going to kind of rush in and inject you with sort of a chemical kibosh. And anyway, there was a young Asian guy come in, and he sat down on the bed, and he spoke about his failings as being a father. And one of the things that sort of kept me using drinking drugs was I couldn't see my son for the consequences of me using. I couldn't see him, so I couldn't cope with the feelings and emotions around that. So I think my higher power puts people in my path and to tell me and to teach me. But he spoke about his failings of being a father. I never saw him since then. But the next day, I was a completely different person. I wasn't obsessed with killing myself anymore. I intuitively knew what to do. And I'd met this guy called Tattoo Phil, who he did some volunteering at the Mulberry Project. And he spoke to me about, he must have seen something in me, saw it coming kind of thing, and he told me about the Mulberry Project. If I was if I needed a place to go, and I was, and I wanted abstinence-based living, and I really wanted to give it a go, he could get me a little key. So the next day I phoned Keith in the courtyard of the psychiatric ward, and I spoke to him, and I just got a really good sense of him straight away. I thought he was very genuine. And I was on a section 3, which means that it's you're not getting out for a long time. It's like at least 3 months. But within 4 days, I was in the Mulberry Project, and I met, Benny was one of them at the time. I met all these amazing people that was in very similar journeys to me, and we all Mulberry Project's got lots of different houses dotted about, and I lived with 3 other people. They were both in recovery, and it's peer support, so we all sort of support each other through it. And Mulberry's never ever never done anything for me that I couldn't do for myself. They've always supported me along the way, and they've supported me in stuff that I couldn't do. And it's been a really long journey. There's a saying in the recovery circle, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Well, for me, it was very, very slow. And for the first sort of year and a half, I was just so scared and nervous. I couldn't look at anyone in the eye. I was just looking at my shoe. And the meetings taught me to sort of open up a bit and taught me about confidence. And they supported me for the last 5 years, but they've allowed me to grow and very mad, and very strange things have happened since being at Mulberry. And it's taken me to some really weird things that, you know, I never thought would happen. Tonight being one of them, you know. So, you know, I do sort of think, how have I got here? You know, how did I get here? Look at this. And so, due to the consequences of me using, I didn't get to see my son for about 5 years, and about a month ago, I saw my son for the first time, face to face, and yeah, it was a bit of a trip. Sorry. And, you know, Mulberry done for me what I couldn't do for myself at the time, but I don't know, I think I'm rallying on a bit now. So let someone else have a go, but thanks for listening. Cheers.
Matthew had a son who was down in Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah, and frightened to death of trying to get linked with him.
Yeah.
Because he tried in the past and kept getting rejected and rejected. So we suggested going through a court procedure, blah, blah, blah. No, I've tried all that. No, we don't want to know, blah, blah, blah. He's now meeting up with his son, as he said, on a regular basis. Didn't you have him over Christmas at one stage for a day or so?
Yeah, we're meeting face to face now. I
Yeah.
get to video call him every week now.
Yeah, gets a video call him every week and arrangements to meet up. And that is unbelievable. Yeah? And see people nodding. And as parents, I think you'll agree, you know, and after being apart for so long, you have so many things in common. Yeah? We're not going into that too long. But no, Matthew is now looking to move on. Okay? We'll still support him when he goes, like we always do. But he's now feeling strong enough, confident enough to actually make his own way in the world. So that's brilliant. Thanks, Matthew. Now we have a man with a checkered past. Most of it laughing, I must admit, as you can tell from his face at the moment, with a beautiful wife, an absolutely gorgeous child, and he's been a massive help to Mulberry. Okay? It's not all one-way traffic, it's two-way traffic with Mulberry. If you don't give, you're not going to receive. That's the way addiction recovery is. Thank you, Duncan.
Hi, I'm Duncan. I'm from Blackwell, originally a little village in Derbyshire. Came in when I was about 17 to my auntie's guest house for a weekend and met a girl and stayed. I ended up somehow working at the Grand Theatre. I'm sure a few of you have been to see shows there, and worked my way up over the years to lovely title of stage manager. I've looked after North Pier as well. But through all my life I've always been a big drinker. And then I got working in theatre, and every night is play night. You finish your show, you go out with a cast, or if you're on tour. I've been fortunate to travel all over the world, so we're in Tokyo, where do we go? Let's find an Irish bar, originally. That's what we did. Then life comes along and hits you along the way, and you know, we get a few deaths and things, you pick up a drink more, a bit more. Drugs have never bothered me, but drinks have always been, anything bad in my life has been surrounded by drink. Anyway, I've been away touring, came back to the Grand Theatre, and like I said, I'd always been a big drinker, and I met a girl in the box office, most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Ended up marrying her over there. And she still supports me now, and I've been lost. Anyhow, I lost my job at the Grand Theatre through a dispute with the manager and all the usual stuff, and I had time on my hands because I've always been a worker, and I've always been 60, 70 hours a week, and my drinking picked up. I can't say when alcohol turned into alcoholism, but it did. And I put my wife through hell. And during this time we were trying to have a child, and we had various miscarriages, which was awful, but eventually through IVF we got our baby Evie, and she is the best thing in the world to me. I think everybody's child. But when we were going through IVF, we were telling them lies just so we could get the IVF, and things like that. And I was drinking heavily, and I was hiding vodka all over the house. A beer wasn't enough then. I used to go out and have 6 or 7 pints and that beer, but then all of a sudden the beer turned to, going to the bar and having a shot. This has been happening over the years, but then it started picking up really bad, and I lost another job because my drinking overtook me. I lost another job and ended up working in Argos. And now I was kind of on the roads, and it was just, however, that woman over there stood by me. I don't know, I can't ever thank her because she's the finest woman I know. And I made a life in that absolute misery, and it's something I'm not proud of. Anyway, my mum passed away, other things happened, and my drinking just got me. It just spiraled. I'm cutting a very long story short because you'll hear these tales of, well, we've all got war stories. But mine was to the point where I'd lost my job at Argos. I'd come home drunk, 7 o'clock in the morning, because I was getting up at 6 in the morning to have half a bottle of vodka to stop the shakes. Thanks to Keith, now I've got the shakes back. But I've always been a very honest person, and the one thing that addiction's done to me is turned me into everything I hate. It's turned me into a liar, a cheat, just a genuinely not a nice person. So it came to the point where my wife said, listen, you've got to go. She was broken hearted. So I went away, and in the end it spiraled and I ended up in hospital, and then I ended up getting put in the what's called the mental health decision unit at the Vic, and it's basically where they assess you in there and they say, right, you can either go to what would have been Parkwood, or I don't know what it's called by then, 55, a big place, or maybe the other thing. Somebody came to see me and said, we think you might be okay to go to rehab. So I went to, I had in my head this vision of going to some mansion in Essex for this rehab and bumping into Katie Price and people like that. And I ended up in the back end of Stockport. and I didn't like it at first, but it was 5 months that I was there for the thing. And when it came to the end of it, because of my alcoholism, my wife ended up living back at her mum's with our baby. Her mum didn't like me. It took a long time because I'd heard the 2 things she loves more than herself. It's her daughter and her grandchild, and I have to hold my hands up to that. So I was talking to people and they said, well, there's a place in Blackpool called Mulberry Project. I've never heard of it, don't know anything about it. Why don't you go and have a word? So I rang them, I came and saw Keith, and I came back to Blackpool, still with my wife by my side. That's what I say, I can't begin to tell you how much that has helped me, because the thing with addiction, it takes you to suicide like that in an instant, because you've no worth, you know nothing, you've nothing left, you've got no energy to give anything. And so they accepted me in, and my dad was going through the onset of dementia as well at the time, but the house was just around the corner from my dad's. I thought it's all meant to be. I'm not a particularly religious man, but a lot of things made a lot of spooky sense. Like, I've come from, and I'm here, and somebody's looking out for me, you know. So anyway, I got on with Mulberry, and I've always had the kind of ethos that if somebody's going to help me, I want to help back. So that's what Keith means. If I can do some bit of painting, whatever, I'll do it. I'm not bothered. And things got great. It's fantastic. Did 2 years. But my head was saying, you're a worker, you should be providing for your family, when it should be the same. You're a bloke with a really bad drink problem and you need to look at that. So after a couple of years, which was last October, I left. And I got a job and I went working on a night shift, just in a factory, working. I'm fine now, top of the world. Forgot all the things I'd learned at Mulberry, and on Christmas Eve, my wife had got some friends around and a bottle of Prosecco was open, and I walked past and had a mouthful. I don't know why I did it. And within 10 minutes, I poured half a bottle of vodka, half a thing of vodka into a mug, and put it on the second thing. My wife would go in, not going to look in the mug, because I don't drink. But I was back to my old habits straight away. And 2 days after Christmas, my wife phoned me and said, "You've relapsed, haven't you? You've gone tear break and cry and not understand why, as much as I didn't understand why, there is no feeling like it. So all of a sudden, your depression comes back, your suicide comes back, there's no hope, there's no nothing." And 2 days after Christmas, I was suicidal. I was getting up in the morning and getting to the shop at 7 o'clock to get vodka to get me away from the thoughts of what I'd done. I couldn't stomach the fact that I wasn't there for Evie. She's my best friend. And after the 4th day, I don't know how, but I phoned Keith. And I was really poorly by this time because I drank myself, because I don't drink vodka, I drink it neat. I always have, my wife will tell you. And I phoned Keith. I don't know why I phoned him, but something had stuck over the 2 years of whatever I'd gone through. And I reached out to Keith. He said, "Come and see me." And I said, "I will," in a day or two. He said, "Come and see me. Get yourself out." He knew. And it was hard for me to get out because I was feeling sick and I was going there. And just before I tell you what happened then, I just remembered me and Keith did a radio interview for Radio Lancashire. And she said, how would you describe Keith? And I said, Mother Teresa with a tash. Sorry, that's all right, need to know. So anyway, I went in to see Keith, and there was Laura, the other girl, who's sort of like the boss number 2 there. And I was in bits, I was broken, crying, couldn't hardly speak, couldn't see a way forward. Because when depression and the self-loathing that comes over you and you have no value, you might as well have gone off the planet. That's all your head's telling you. He said, "Come back in." And to put it in a religious context, come back to the flock. That's the way I saw it, you know. And I stopped the job. And he said, "Come into group on Monday," which was on the Friday. "Keep clean, don't have a drink." I didn't, you know. I'd arrested it, luckily. And I came back in, still feeling like death on the Monday. Got somebody to drive me from the flat I was living at back into one of Mulberry's properties. That afternoon, by 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was back in the Mulberry Project. And it taught me a lesson because I thought I could be somebody who could get on with life and do a normal job. I might have been then, but it's not now. I'm Duncan, I've got an alcohol problem, and I have to work my life around that. And so I need to come back into Mulberry with the open arms it gives you to get back into my life. So since I came back in, I've sort of become the Mulberry maintenance man. I love it because it's giving back. I get a big kick out of giving back for Keith, you know. And we've now got the van, and we're going on day trips.
That's the minibus, by the way.
Yeah, the minibus. Yeah. And we're going to go out soon. We went on a trip to the Manchester Science Museum. I like baking, so I'm baking for us all when we go on the trip, you know. And I've got me back, and my wife's got me back, and I've got my wife back, and I've got my child back. not one of this, not one part of this would have been, I'd be dead. It's no two ways, and other people come in and tell you the same. But if it hadn't been for Keith, I would be saying somebody else would be, I guarantee it. And I'm just one little piece in it, and I've said good things.
He doesn't mean Cornish pasty, let me tell you. And we had some rocky road the other day, yeah, which didn't last very long, okay. I'm going to bat all this off. It's not me that does this, okay? I'm there, but I'm acting on God's behalf. Yeah? I'm only there because God told me to be there, okay? And I'm quite happy to be there, don't get me wrong. You know, it's been a struggle sometimes, but it's not me that's doing it. I'm only a representative, okay? And I think everybody in Mulberry knows I go to church, they know I'm a Christian, and I don't force it down people's throats, ever. But if you question, like Vincent did, I'll sit down and talk about my faith. Quite happy to. I've got some literature for you as well now, by the way, so see me on Monday. So yes, I think we're going to stop now for a few minutes.
Thank you so much. Really, really fantastic to hear your stories. We've got 2 more coming up in just a sec. We're going to have some pudding now, so let's pause and have some pudding, and then we'll hear a bit more from Mulberry. Fantastic. Please keep eating your puddings, and don't let me stop you doing that, but let me hand you back to Keith and these guys from Mulberry.
That's the end of the adverts. Back to the show. Vincent on my left. 12 months, 2 winters, roughly. Yeah. It's a completely different story to tell. Nodding away, so I hope he's got it ready. So I'm going to hand you over to Vincent. Let him tell you some of his background and where he's from.
Yeah, I'm Vincent. Nice to be here. I don't like hearing my own voice. I'm from a little town called from Barrow. Yeah, completely different story to what you just heard. I identify as a recovering drug addict. I started taking substances as a child. I didn't really feel like I fit in, so when I was under the influence, I didn't have to be myself, I didn't have to be in my own head. I've done that most of my life. I've been a drug user for over 30 years. This is quite hard, this. I've abused every drug. In the early teens, I started committing a lot of crime. Petty crime, shoplifting, stealing out of motor vehicles, stealing push bikes, committing burglaries, and ended up at 16 in young offenders prison. And I've pretty much been on that roundabout ever since. the thing about me is I don't like the person I am. I'm very insecure, no confidence whatsoever. So I use drugs so I don't have to be myself. I've always had a mask on, played an act. As a young adult, I started supplying drugs in quite a big way. In and out of prison, continuously on big prison sentences. I've lost every job I've ever had through my drug use, every relationship I've ever had through drug use. I don't have contact with my kids. I've got 2 girls, 10 and 20. My marriage split up because of my use of drugs. So like I say, I was on a merry-go-round that I struggled to get off. About 2.5 years ago, I was in prison, and a bloke from Horizon came in and spoke to a few lads who were in there, and he spoke about the recovery. And I stayed behind afterwards and I had a chat with him, and he came back to visit me and he told me about the Mulberry Project. And I'd already decided that I couldn't go back to my hometown where all my drug use was, where all the bad memories were, where it caused havoc. So I took him up, I got assessed with the Mulberry and I got accepted. I still had a year left on my prison sentence to do. I was looking at getting a parole, but I ended up relapsing, lost my parole. That was September, 18 months ago. Quite fearful that I wouldn't be accepted again. I thought I messed it up. I spoke to a member of staff there and he told me it's fine, we'll get you there, just you have to be clean to come. So I've not touched the drugs since the 12th of September, in that last relapse. I come out on the 5th of March, 12 months ago, and I came straight to Blackpool. Normally, when I got released from prison, I'd go straight to a pub, meet all my friends, get high, get drunk, and then just work my way from there, sleep on sofas, still got my own property, or found a girl I could move in with. That was pretty much my life. I've got no life experience. My life's just run, lived around drugs and using drugs. I didn't pay bills. It was quite I don't know how I could explain that. It just wasn't normal. So the past 12 months I've been in Mulberry now. And I kind of jumped in with 2 feet and let God, just handed my will and my life over to him and just followed everybody else. I met loads of people in recovery here. There's a huge recovery services in Blackpool. So I've met people who look like they were doing good, nice people. I followed them, I took suggestions, and I'm doing quite well today. The Mulberry has given me a safe place to be, a secure home. Somewhere I could go at night and not worry about anything really. Do you know that? I go to college, I've done my mental health awareness while I've been in the Mulberry. I've just started a counselling course. I'm looking at volunteering in the next couple of weeks. I try to get involved as much as possible. I try to be the better version of me. I don't know who I am. The person who I was a child. I've just been in a big drug haze for the last 35 years. So it's a slow process, but I think I've kind of cracked it at the minute. I'm doing really well. I'm inspiration to loads, and I'm proud of myself. That's all I can say.
Quite a change coming out of prison and then starting to do college courses, then starting to get into voluntary work, and hopefully eventually full-time work with the confidence to actually continue that life outside of Mulberry. That is absolutely brilliant. That's where Mulberry is the stepping stone. We're not the answer. We're just a stepping stone. Thank you. Oh, now, coming along. Because Benny, it's John Benson by the way, but it's called Benny. Must tell you that John Benson lived in a house with Ben Johnson. Good that, isn't it? Yeah, so prepare, get yourself patterns down. I hope you're comfortable, because once Benny starts. Oh, thank you, Benny.
Unscathed. Yeah, Benny. Drug addict, alcoholic, anything. Anything I can have more of it. Used to think I was quite posh, but born in Lytham Hospital. But I was born into like 2 alcoholics. I was born on the back end of basically an affair, because mum was a barman, dad owned a big coal firm in St Anne's, and they were partying, and mum was the social landlord on the fee, but they divorced them, they lost everything, finished it all off, and ended up doing himself in when I was 2. But she carried on, an alcoholic, but I didn't understand that. So I grew up pretty fast, no morals. Did what I want, when I want, took what I want. I'm nervous. I've stood in front of people in jail where it's more nerve-wracking here. Still out of my life, I was involved with crime quite young. And I mean like 9, 10, 11. Dabbled with alcohol when I was between 10 and 11. It took off quite extremely. By the time I was 13, I was at the doctor's with behavioural problems, alcohol, and as they classed it, what was it? Just low-class drugs like cannabis and LSD I started dabbling with. But by 13, I was selling them at school and crime. Suspended, either being unconsciously drunk or off my head. I was a Finnegan child, and when I found out what it was when I was a bit older, I used to buy bottles of it. You know what I mean? And then I started peddling 9 so that. But yeah, my life spiraled fast. You know, I couldn't fit it all in, to be honest with you. You know, it's like, I I would have ended up in care, but them days, you went to stay with your auntie, you went to stay with your granddad, whatever. But everyone I'd turned to after my dad died. Like, I got left with my granddad, and I was only about 6. And it was the days that you had phones that went like that. And the phone book, you put your finger in a letter and it went like that. And he had his bed downstairs and I woke up, but he's dead on the floor with his oxygen mask on and that. Something in me, I knew what to do, I knew to run, you know what I mean? It took 2 ambulance staff to get me out of the house. Yeah, it was weird. And, but everyone got close, he died. So I went inwards, so I started taking more drugs, committing more crime, it got me attention. I used to wear it like a badge of honour, believe it or not. I learned very young that violence or being scary made people scared of you. And so I was hanging about with a lot of people a lot older than me, and I idolised them, even though they had nothing. And I had loads of opportunities when I was young. You know, I went to be a trainee jockey. I ruined it. I was fighting, I was stealing cars, I was drinking Jack Perry's whiskey out of his own house because I've been kicked out of the dorms and he loved me that much, he took me in his house. And anyway, Mum couldn't handle me. I'd been palmed off every member of the family. Didn't want to know. Got shoved in a flat when I was 15. I'd been expelled from school. It was one of them. He sent a letter on going, we're not going to let John back to school until you come and see me and we have a meeting. Well, I knew that was never going to happen because my mum was out of the face. So, and I was already by that time drinking and using like benzos and diazepam and Valium and that with my mum. Moved out, thinking I was a dog's and all that, nearly swore, been told not to swear. And you know, like got into the mates, oh, it's aces living in the flat business and all that. Got me flat, and then the first night there, my mum bought me a litre bottle of some comfort. And I sat on the step outside on the road, crying. So I didn't know how it got there. And then, by the time I was 17, I was an intravenous drug user. And I thought I was a chemist. I thought I knew everything, you couldn't tell me nothing. As Keith would tell you when I first turned up, I still couldn't be told anything. I ended up getting sectioned in my 20s. I was in detoxes, they used to send me to Ward 34 in Blackpool Bay. I'd just tell them about the drink, so then they'd give me drugs. And then I'd have people meet me at the back door with drink and drugs, and I'd just use it as a break. Did that many times, the revolving door, like Finn said, selling drugs, being used as a muppet, thinking I was a big man. And then when you realise you're not the big man, when you rip them off, you know what I mean? And because then you start getting shotguns pointed at you and stuff. And I was in footwells of cars with guns pointed at me. And I'd still be lying, going, no, I know where your money is, I know where that is. And I didn't. And my life just was like that for many years. Tried to get clean, didn't know how to. Got taken to a first fellowship meeting in early 2000 by a guy that used to stay on a couch. And I thought, his money run out, he got some inheritance, so let him stay on the couch. Didn't really notice he'd gone because his money ran out, so he didn't really care to me, he was selfish and self-centered. And he knocked on the door and he went, can I take you to a meeting? I think you need it. Well, if you lend me a tenner, get me 2 black cans, I'll come with you. And he did. And there was a couple of people there that I know today, and I still know him today as well. But I didn't get it, you know. And then I went on an almighty bender, and then I needed to go to sleep. I went to see my mum and I was like, listen, I need sleep, I need to hide, I'm thousands in debt, I'm going to get shot again. And we had a bender, because mum always used to have a crate vodka, big store of benzodiazepine, and she'd always have a few quid to chuck me for a bit of weed and that. And she killed me over, and I phoned an ambulance. Got to the hospital and I said, this woman's not going to make it, this, that and the other. Brothers weren't answering the phone to me, obviously, because they'd had enough of me. And I was like, the caring son. And then they went, right, you're going to have to take all the gold, her handbag and everything. I went, what's it? In my head, for that second I forgot about what was going on. Straight to purse, cash cards, any cash. Any marzipan, any diazepam that were in a bag. And I've just gone, listen, I can't carry it. I can't get home. Just made up a lot of bullshit, left it within walks. Well, actually, I got thrown out. And stopped at 24 hours, then this was 2007 on the way home. Got enough Jack Daniels to sing for shit, straight still there, scored drugs on the way home, and tried to kill himself. Woke up, brother had come through the door, smashed the door off. I'm in a pillow sick. I didn't want to be there. But I couldn't stop using. The hospital told me, day in, day out, she was in a coma for 3 months. You can't come back until you're straight. And eventually one of my brothers, he's quite bigger than me, dragged me by my neck and said, listen, I'm going to give you an ice and if you don't show up, and I'm going to put you in here permanently. Went to the doctor's, got a massive prescription of benzodiazepines that basically controls me but kept me calm, kept me stable. And I got to go and see her, and I got to be there when I turned the machine off. And I still couldn't stop. So I went to rehab. I thought that'll do it. The first 33 days had been nothing in my system. So I'm scared that I left and went on the mother-in-law bends where my mum's estate got split. It was 18 grand. My other half brother was a solicitor in Lytham. I threatened to touch the offices. I got him in back police plenty of times. Threatened to touch the house with his kitchen to buy for him. He knew I was capable, so I got my money. £18,000 by a lot of drugs. And I sort of tried to do myself in, but it didn't work. God had a plan for me, I don't know what it was, but and then started trying to get clean because the money ran out. I couldn't sell drugs anymore because people would not buy them off me because I constantly ripped them off. I was in a little flat, using, smoking crack cocaine, eating Valium, doing whatever. My head would not stop telling me you were a worthless piece of this, that and the other. And my head was having me over, no matter how many sleeping tablets I had. And my circle was the soup kitchen at Sally Army, where I started asking about God's debtor, but I didn't realise until later on. The cash machine, the phone box, and my flat. And that was about as far as I went. And anyway, the woman, I found somewhere my ego left me for a second, and I asked for help. And they got me out of the flat into a bail hostel, which was better than where I was, on Mulberry Road. And I started going to meetings. I started adding recovery things on Facebook. I was already at Mulberry on Facebook before I knew about Mulberry. And I started going to meetings, started listening. I was like, yeah, but you're not that. Yeah, but you're not that many. And then I got clean. And I lasted about 30 days again. But that wasn't me training, that wasn't me clothes. I was still selling drugs to the people in the place where I was, but I wasn't taking them, so I thought I was right. And then all of a sudden I relapsed, got to a place in 7.5 hours where I wanted to save my own life again. And the day after, I went to this recovery group, and this guy was in Mulberry. He went, I'll make a phone call for you, to tell you one. And I rung Keith, and he went, you're John Benstein? Yeah. got it on Facebook, said, yeah, come in. Came in, and that was the 3rd of June 2014. I haven't used since, or drank. And then he told me, he said, listen, I'll put a roof over your head, I'll keep you warm, you keep the house tidy, you wash your clothes, you do some shopping, and you go out and find recovery. And I told him what I was intending on doing, the 12 steps, this, that, the other. And he sort of like took me in, and he just, I went, how long have we got, Excellencies? Because I've never lived anywhere, I lived out of a bag for the 27 years of using it, so I got kicked out on a regular basis, or I had to run away. And it was the first time I got my stuff out of the bag, and hung it on the wall, in a wardrobe and stuff. I was like, that first night's sleep. I remember ringing him the next day and going, I had a fag in the back garden and I felt safe. Now with me, without a chemical in me, it took me to like Vincent, the little boy, scared. You know, flashbacks to what I witnessed and stuff. And it was like, it was hard. I just started engaging in this 12-step recovery, found out about what I suffered with and stuff. And with, like Matthew said, you know, handing your will and life over to a power greater, I didn't understand it. I kept on going at Keith about that, and I'd shut the door. I go, what's this? How am I going to know when God is working in my life? Because I need to know now. And he went, listen, John, just chill. You'll know when the time's right. And anyway, I went on this journey like all the rest of these guys, you know, I got well stuck in, and I'd had no schooling as you heard, like, so I started talking about maybe got college and stuff like that. I was like, lads, don't be silly. And like, here's someone going for the driving licence. And I went to my support worker, well, I've been banned for the last 14 years, so what about me applying for mine? I said, listen, John, we can put it in, we don't know what we'll do. He told me to go for a medical, and I did every single target on there, every time they met me for it. Drugs, alcohol, a lot. Quarter to 9 in the morning, last morning, the time I got arrested in, he said I was in a bad way. And I got my licence back, started taking lessons, and I got a moped. And everyone told me not to. Because when I got in Mulberry, I didn't know, but through my drug taking, I lost all my muscles, my nerve endings from the knee down. I have carbon fibre leg brackets today, but then I used to, like, I'd use a wall, because I did have sticks, but my ego wouldn't let me use them. I used to use walls to walk everywhere. If there wasn't a wall, I'd fall over. So I went and faced that, and then someone said, go for an MOT, one of the service sport worker went, you've been to the doctor lately? I had blood-borne viruses, you know, I had hepatitis C, they went with me, put me through that, you know, it was like, what's wrong? And all these things, getting things corrected, go and get basic maths, basic English. I took a voluntary job with Mulberry as well, to support me through my health and social care, like this stuff. I went through 1, 2, 3. I was like, what are you on about? I've got a diploma. And then I was like, oh, I'll do counselling, so I did 1, 2. And I was like, hold on, what's going on here, you know what I mean? And then a year in, I thought I was fixed. Met this bird, went, right, I'm going to move in. Met a girl, moved in with her. Someone said, oh, you just need a white picket fence and all that, but she was still using. And I just rung him one night and said I've had to leave. And got to my brother's because she's asked me to use with her. And that was a God moment. Because someone putting chemicals in front of me saying, I thought, hold on, how's that happened? That was definitely, even though now I've realised that I should have died many times, you know what I mean, through using, there was definitely God moments in my life, but that I definitely knew what had happened there. And so I came back in, it was only like a month, less than a month I think it was. Came back in, then I had an accident on my moped, smashed my kneecap. They went, what are you doing with that riding moped when you've got no nerve endings in the legs anyway? I was like, no, I'm told not to. And then after that, I had to learn to walk again because I smashed my kneecap, and obviously no muscle reformed in my kneecap, so I got muscle wastage. and they supported me through that, and they helped me get my own place, and like someone said, I've had to learn to pay bills, I had to learn to cook, I went to cooking lessons. I had an argument with a cookery teacher that oven chips did not come from potatoes. You get them from Iceland in a bag, end of. And as for washing machines, you know, like when you go into a laundrette, you have 3 buttons, and I never knew which hole to put the powder in. You just put it all, you know, little boxes, splitting them all, you're going to get it sorted right, aren't you? You know, I never knew anything like that. As for bills, no. If it had a cutting meter, it got kicked off the wall. If it had a bill, it went in one of my mates' names that were in jail. I didn't pay bills, I didn't know how to. And to be honest with you, I knew I wasn't going to end up staying there long anyway. And so I had to learn about budgeting and stuff, and I moved in my own property, and you know, I've lived there 6.5 years now, and for a lad that was born in London Hospital, I live in Grange Park, and I love it. I'm a council estate lad. You can't say that out of me, but I don't have to use drugs or alcohol today. You know, I've been with my partner, put something with me, yeah, we're getting married next August, man, it's like, got my driving licence, I've got paid work, I've got a job, and apparently I'm good at it. What's all that about, you know what I mean? And I've got, I don't know, you know, I was given a computer when I first went to college, and she went, do you know anything about me? I said, yeah, about how much you're worth in calculators. That's all I knew. I didn't know how to do it. And it's like, everything, I know I'd be dead, without a doubt. If I didn't kill myself, voluntary sort of, drugs would have killed me, my health would have killed me, or my past would have caught up with me and killed me, you know. In my problem that I do, I have to go and set right the things I've done wrong, and I've had some big amends to do, you know. I had a son when I was in addiction, and I didn't see him 16 years, and then I come out of college one night and he messaging me. I think it's about me and time, you and me met face to face. I thought, if he's anything like me, he's going to do me right anyway. Piccadilly at the waterfall, Saturday, boom. Because he's mum's from Manchester. I went, but I took a mate, and I'd them in Costa. I thought, if him and see the last from that corner, I'm out of there, mate. But, you know, I've made a promising amends to him that I make regular contact. I'm going tomorrow to spend a day with him. He's at university studying music. I got to be guarantor for him. You know what I mean? I was never in the banking system, so I never owed any bank money or nothing, so I was too scared. You know, all I have today stems from going into Mulberry. That is, it's made me the man I am today, without a doubt. You know what I mean? I always feel Mulberry's deep in my heart. No matter what it is, I've had arguments over it, I've had resentments, people that have abused it and then slated it, you know, like, because they failed, they slagged it off. I've nearly had fights. I tell you, and I realise it's a passion. It is a passion, and I'm never going to let go of it, I know that. But I don't have to, you know what I mean? And it's, you know, everything I've got today is due to Mulberry and putting a bit of graft in myself, which I haven't done. You know, I connect to a power greater than, like many most of us do in the morning. It hurts when I get to my knees, so if it's a bit warmer, I do go on my knees, and I don't mind doing it. You know, when I first did it, I was like, help no one see, you know, curtain shut, door shut, help no one see me. I do not care if I pray in the middle of the town centre. I don't care. Because I've realised faith is strength, but I didn't realise that then, you know what I mean? I thought it was weak, you know. Because I thought I was God for a long time. I realised I'm not, you know what I mean? And you know, always give me a programme. I don't know, I can't say much more, but it's a place that someone's got a chance of living instead of either existing or dying, you know what I mean? We spoke before, didn't we, about how many people have left us. You know, if I go back around, I've spoke to someone about people I used to hang about with. None of them are alive, really. My best mates are all dead. Thank you.
That he has lost was his brother.
Oh, yeah.
and we both went to the funeral last year. So it is deeply personal. Thank you, Benny.
Right, we'll let you fellas get off the stage and get back to your tea and coffee and things, but let's say a big thank you again to all the folks who come down from Mulberry. I'm so deeply grateful for your guys' courage in sharing your stories with us. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate hearing that. And what fantastic work Mulberry does. And if you'd like to hear more about it, I'm sure Keith will be able to wax lyrical about other ways that we can. We support Mulberry as a church, but if you'd like to think about how you can support Mulberry personally, please speak to Keith about that. Well, so this evening we're going to be hearing these stories of addiction and recovery, and also think about how faith in Jesus connects with that. We've already heard from Keith that Mulberry really is his Christian faith in action, and isn't that wonderful? But I'd just like to ask you a question, and that is, have you ever experienced slavery? Have you ever experienced slavery? I'm guessing not, looking around people in the room. I mean, I've worked at Sports Direct. I don't think that quite counts, does it? But sadly, being more realistic, there is a lot of hidden slavery today, isn't there? So it's not a stupid question. But actually, why talk about slavery? Well, because there are similarities between addiction and slavery, aren't there? Both involve a power over you that is stronger than you, or certainly seems stronger than you. With both, you can end up doing things that ruin your life. And with both, you normally need outside help in order to be set free. Now, Jesus says something very shocking about you and me, about everyone in this room. He says that we're all slaves. He says that we're all a kind of addicts. And he says that he's come to set us free. Now, is that something that you find offensive? The first hearers of Jesus certainly did, because they ended up putting him to death. No, we're not slaves, we've got no chains, we've got no branding. We're even free from lockdown regulations now, aren't we? But Jesus says there's a slavery, an addiction that we're all born into, but that we can't see. And though we can't see it, we feel it affects every day. And I'd like to share a really short passage of the Bible with you from John's Gospel. It's printed, it's on your tables, the little white flyer, it's printed on your tables. It's from John chapter 8. It's one of the accounts of Jesus' life written by one of the eyewitnesses. And John chapter 8, starting at verse 31, says this. To the Jews who believed in him, Jesus said, "If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free." They answered him, "We're Abraham's descendants, and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say we shall be set free?" Jesus replied, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. I know you're Abraham's descendants, yet you're looking for a way to kill me, because you have no room for my words." Jesus says in this passage, "Come follow me, learn from me, because following me is freedom." Now the crowd were offended. "We're free, thank you very much, Jesus. We've never been slaves." Now there's a deep, deep irony to that response. Israel had been occupied at the time that Jesus was there. Israel was occupied by the Romans. They were ruled over by the Roman Empire. And then there's the most formative event in Jewish history. That's the Exodus, which is when they were rescued by God from slavery in Egypt. So Jesus says to this crowd, tells them and tells us plainly, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin." Why is it that we keep doing things that harm us and others? Why is it that so often we make a mess in our relationships? Why is it we can't be the kind of people that we want to be and know we should be? When I was younger, I never set out to be a habitual liar. I mean, who does? But I found myself regularly telling lies. Sometimes it was just, to tell a story, to sound a bit more interesting, to seem a bit more cool. Other times it would be to get out of an awkward situation, maybe to manipulate someone to get what I wanted. And sometimes it would snowball and there'd be lies told on top of other lies on top of other lies. Until at last, many of my friends really just learned to not really, trust what I was saying. I'd tell a story and people would go, oh yeah, Johnny, yeah, whatever. Sometimes I get called out for BS, but I'd just double down, like certain politicians. I didn't set out to be a liar, but once I was on that train, I just couldn't get off. And that didn't change until I met Jesus. Something more recently. I never set out to be an angry parent, but sometimes I just have so little patience with my kids. And you laugh, but it's not funny. It's horrible how sometimes I can just explode over a small act of disobedience or disrespect. I've lost count of the number of times I've felt awful for the way that I've shouted at my kids and I had to go back to them later and say sorry. Now, I'm not saying these things are the same as substance addiction. They're certainly not. It's different. But there are similarities. And as far as there's a power greater than us that ruins our lives, and we need outside help to be free. Jesus calls that power sin. Sin's not the naughty but nice thing, like cheating on a diet. Not like I've been on a diet. But sin is the selfishness that stops me putting myself out for others. Sin is the greed that means I'm not satisfied with what I've got. Sin separates us from God and from one another. Why is it we can't change those bad parts of our character that we like least? It's because sin is a habit that we can't beat ourselves. Can you connect with that? Well, to people who have a problem with sin, Jesus says, following me is freedom. He says, if the Son will set you free, you will be free indeed. Jesus walked on this earth, the only one never to give in to sin. He lived the perfect life. He succeeds where all of us fail. But he's not aloof. He doesn't lord it over us. He came and drew near. He came to rescue us, to set us free, to bring us back into God's family. But the first step is we need to admit we've got a problem. We need to accept Jesus' diagnosis. Sin isn't the occasional slip-up in an otherwise good life like we like to convince ourselves. He says very truly, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. He can rescue you. He can change you. He can set you free. But only you see your need for him. And so, Jesus' church is a little bit like the Mulberry Project. Mulberry is a place for recovering addicts, and church is a place for recovering sinners. Now, the journey with Mulberry, as Keith said, is only a step along the way. You have to enter Mulberry once you're abstinent. Whereas the church is a place for sinners who are still in the thick of it. Because we all are. We're all works in progress. Now, I'm no longer a habitual liar, thankfully. But as I shared, I still struggle with being an angry parent. Jesus is at work in me. I make progress. I have times when I see myself reacting much better than perhaps I wouldn't have in the past. But I still slip back. Jesus doesn't say to us, get clean from sin and then follow me. No one who follows Jesus is sorted. No one who follows Jesus is clean. Not in this life. But Jesus will save us. Jesus says, come to me because you need my help. We can't sort ourselves out, but Jesus can. And so All Hallows is a church full of recovering sinners. We're a community of people who've been found by Jesus and know that we need his help every day. And we'd love you to find life in Jesus too, to find the freedom that comes from following him. And so if you're interested in that, here are some ways you can take things forward from this evening. First of all, come along on any Sunday. We love having guests and visitors every Sunday. We love sharing about how great Jesus is. And this Sunday is a special guest Sunday, so you might especially like to come along this Sunday, or join us over Easter. There are flyers on your table telling you when our Easter services are. We'd love you to join us on our 3-2-1 course, which explores in more detail what Jesus says about God, the world and you. It's a free course. It's on 4 Tuesday evenings, starting on the 19th of April. There's again a yellow flyer on your table. You could fill that in if you're interested. Thirdly, if you've not got a Bible, but would like to read more about Jesus and from one of the eyewitnesses, on the table on the way out, there are copies of John's Gospel. They're free to take if you'd like to meet Jesus off the page of that book. Pick it up and have a read. And then lastly, as Keith was saying in the Mulberry Project, talk to a Christian you know. Ask them what it's like following Jesus, and they'd be only too happy to share. Well, thank you again for joining us this evening. Another big thank you again to the guys from the Mulberry Project. Can we have another round of applause for them? And also, let's in a similar way say thank you to those who've cooked for us and served for us this evening. Thank you. Well, that's all there is from up front for this evening. Please feel free to stay around. There's more leftover puddings and various things. It'd be great to see you on Sunday or at 3-2-1, and please feel free to stay around and chat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember just to